Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Hey, X. So some weird happened to me 2 years ago. Wanted to share it. Be me, 17. Go with Dad to New Hampshire for summer. Visiting cousin and uncle. Cousin is cool, so I'm happy to go. Uncle and Dad are big gun fans. They go hunting and leave me with cousin. Cousin and I watch a show or something until it gets dark, where they live in New Hampshire. It's pitch black at night. We decide to play this game called Manhunt. Manhunt is like hide and seek but in the dark outside. Call cousin's friend over. She's our only neighbor for miles. The three of us play Manhunt outside. Cousin was seeker. Hide in the woods near the house. Friend hides in a shack in the back. Smell something bad, like vomit. Hear growling noises that sound human. I think it's cousin trying to freak me out so he'll find me. Growling noises go away. Go find friend so I can hide with her. Go up to her. She tells me that we should find a new hiding place. Go with her. We hear the growling noises again with the smell. She starts to freak out and run to our house. Growling noises stop. What.jpg? Whatever's there is not going for cousin's friend. The smell is so strong I freak out too and run for the house. Get to the house with friend. Notice cousin isn't there. Objective of Manhunt is to get to house. Friend and I announce that we've won. No reply from cousin. We wait for 10 minutes, thinking he'd eventually either get bored or scared and come back. Nothing. After 20 minutes we decide to go back, so we get some flashlights. We split up. Friend goes in woods and I go to the back. Hear a screech. F this.png. Head for woods to go to friend. See a light, head towards that. Light goes off. Use my flashlight to look around. Now deep in a woods. Find friend. Ask her why flashlight's off. She said it ran out. Eventually find cousin. He was hiding and did the screech and everything. We all go back to house. But I still faintly smell it. Friend sleeps over. Don't sleep that night. Neither does cousin. Cousin and I talk a bit. Yell at him for freaking me out. Tell him about the smell and growling. Cousin freezes. Tells me he never did that. I ask him if he's messing with me. He tells me he isn't. Both of us start freaking out. Cousin goes into basement, gets 2 guns. Gives me one. I ask him WTF he's doing. He wants to shoot it. Go along with him. We go in the woods again. Smell it again, cousin does too. Cousin starts vomiting. Look around and start shooting randomly. After like the 3rd shot, we hear a screech almost exactly like the one before. Grab cousin and GTFO. Go into house, lock door and wait until sunrise. We can hear distant screeches throughout the night. Dad and uncle come back the next day. Tell me they were worried because they saw chunks of flesh. Lots of blood, vomit and a terrible smell on their way back.
Last 4th of July. Driving to Maine with 3 friends. All teammates at University of Massachusetts. Decide to leave at night so we get there by morning. Leave at 10, get to New Hampshire around 11:30. Me and Jeff are talking, Donnie and Byron are asleep in the back. Dat 99 Jeep Cherokee Doe. Start to get this weird feeling that something's wrong. Start go through a mental checklist. Nah, all set. Keep hearing little sounds and grunts from the back. Keep telling myself it's my boys. I'm lying to myself. A half hour of this weird bullshit goes by. On edge, something's going on. Around 1, pull into a gas station near the highway, need an excuse to get out. I'm craving an Arizona. Me and Jeff go inside and get drinks and shit. Go back outside. Look at my Jeep and my trunk is open. Dude, what the? I always lock it manually and double check every time. I even remember doing it before we left. Jeff wakes Byron and Donnie up. Check the trunk, find a brand new shit smelling oily spot near my helmet and football pads. Find a ice pick wrapped in a tattered cloth and a bootlace. Carry a loaded PPK underneath my seat in a locked box now.
2 years ago, spring break. With 3 other friends going to Canada. Spend all day driving, we're too tired to keep going. We stay in a hotel in New Hampshire for the night. It's a small hotel in the woods, tiny town in the middle of nowhere. 3 a.m. Everyone else is asleep. I'm on my laptop. About to go to sleep. Walk over to the window to close the curtains. Stop right in my tracks. In the reflection, I see 2 guys wearing formal suits in the corner of the room. They're talking with each other. One is holding a glass of wine, the other is holding a bottle. Holy F. Jiff. I look behind me. My friends and I are the only ones in the room. Look back at the window. The 2 guys are still there in the reflection, talking to each other and laughing. I am staring, horrified, for at least 30 seconds. One of the guys notices me, then the other one does. They suddenly drop what they're holding and bolt out of the room. I yell Jesus Christ and look back and forth. The door is still closing in the reflection. One of my friends says, "Shut up," still half asleep. Once the door in the reflection closed, I quickly shut the curtains. 7:30 a.m. I didn't sleep at all. I spent all morning on my laptop. Go to a Closeby Dunkin' Donuts and get a dozen for all of us. Come back to the hotel. One friend who was with us doesn't sleep much. He wakes up. We decide to go to the pool. As we're swimming, I tell him about what went down a few hours beforehand. Doesn't believe me, not too surprised. 15 minutes pass. I say, "Hey, I'm going to the room to get another donut. I'll be right back." Go back to the room. Same friend is still sleeping in his bed. Actually, fuck this.jpeg. Fuck that.jpeg. Fuck you.jpeg. Alrighty, go back to the pool. He's still swimming. I say I'm going to walk around a bit and explore the area. I'll be back when we have to check out.
Okay.
Go back to the room and write a note, saying I'll be back soon. I just walked away from the hotel, not knowing what to do. Came back a couple hours later. Everyone was awake and everything was normal. Didn't mention any of what happened to them.
Sort of a weird story, I guess. Sleeping at my cousin's house in Upper New Hampshire. I'm roughly 12 at the time. Wake up a few times during the night 'cause the bed was uncomfortable as shit. Wake up at 5 a.m., it's during the summer so it's sort of bright out. Sitting in bed staring up at the ceiling when I hear a plane go overhead. It was fairly low and slow, which I thought was strange because we're nowhere near an airport. All of a sudden I hear a massive explosion, not a thunderclap but the clear sound of a man-made explosion, incredibly loud. Look outside my window expecting to see debris of the plane raining down. No debris, no sign of any explosion. Nobody else in the house wakes up despite it being probably the loudest thing I've ever heard. Mention it when other people in the house get up. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Didn't mention it again. I still sort of wonder what it was, but it was loud and really weird.
Lived in New Hampshire. House next to mine is a really old farmhouse. Always felt really uncomfortable in the house, especially at nighttime or in the basement. Anyone who's been in my house noticed this as well. My best friend slept over once. Told me she saw shit, specifically a cat that walked through walls, and a woman in my kitchen. I made fun of her for it. Pantry was on the stairwell to the basement. Always felt like things were misplaced in there, especially things I recently touched. Decide to go with my feeling. Get my dog a treat, hand it to him, turn around and dog treat bag is completely gone. Look up and down the stairs for it. It's nowhere to be found. Tell my mom, who rolls her eyes about it. She finds the dog food bag upside down and backwards on the shelf and calls me a drama queen. I'm convinced there's something up now. Search the house for an intruder because no fucking way it's a ghost. No intruder. I'm convinced it's a ghost. Months later. Friends want to play with water guns, home alone. Go down to the basement. My playroom, and can't find them anywhere. Basement is spotless. Shout, please, please help me find the water guns. I want to go out and play with my friends. I know you don't do anything while I'm here, so I'll leave. Leave basement. Come back to find 2 water guns right in the middle of the floor. Shout thank you and run off and play, thinking not much of it. Every time I read past my bedtime, my lights would turn off by themselves. Acquire pick related and read past bedtime. Descriptions match what my friend saw on the mark. Lights turn off since I'm reading past my bedtime. Nearly piss self. As a kid, I thought it was magical and wonderful. As an adult, I'm a bit freaked out by all of this. I want to learn what was there. What kind of ghost was it, and I want to go back. I'm on the opposite end of the US now, but I want to go back there. The house is up for sale still. It's never had occupants in it for long. Some more tidbits. toddler sister came up to me and told me the angels told her great-grandma was going to be in a better place. Great-grandma dies a few hours later. My sister would talk to herself in her room often, as if she was having a conversation. Went to check to see if she was playing, but she said she was just talking to the angels. Meanwhile, I was too scared to get up to go to the restroom at night due to the feeling of being watched by something menacing. I did Hail Marys a lot and hoped the feeling would go away.
I live in a small town that is a borderline village in the mountains here in New Hampshire. I moved to my current house 2 years ago, and the first Halloween here I had encountered a being that no one has been able to explain. 2 weeks prior to Halloween in 2015, me and my family would hear running and footsteps up and down a flight of stairs in our hallway. My sibling would ask me if I was up at night. I was not, as I worked on first shift and had to be up at 5 a.m. We also noticed that small items of ours would disappear and then reappear somewhere else in the house. For me, it was a silver ring that I wore on my left hand. I would leave it on my nightstand when I left for work, and I would find it all over the house every day. One time we were eating in the kitchen and it fell out of the ceiling and landed on the table. My father's lighter and glasses would disappear at random for long periods of time during all of this. October 30th came and we had decided to carve some pumpkins and put them on the granite stoop in front of the house. I carved one and placed a cigar in its mouth and went out to place it on the stoop. As I opened the door, I heard what sounded like footsteps from the right of me coming towards me, so I went in to grab my flashlight, and as I went in, my stepmother walked out with the other pumpkins and placed them on the stoop and then walked down the stairs to take a picture, and that when whatever it is showed up on the camera. That night all we heard was what sounded like running in the hallway and people walking up and down the stairs. 2 weeks after Halloween, it all stopped and not much has happened since. Just random phantom voices.
This is a classic, and probably the most well-known case, but is always a good read. Betty and Barney Hill abduction. The Hills lived in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, USA. Barney was an employee of the U.S. Postal Service while Betty was a social worker. On September 19, 1961, the Hills were driving back to Portsmouth after a vacation in Canada. At around 10:30 p.m., just south of the town of Lancaster, Betty observed a bright light in the sky that moved between the moon and Jupiter, upward to the west of the moon. While Barney drove down Route 3, Betty thought she saw a falling star moving upward. It moved erratically and grew in size. Betty urged Barney to stop the car for a closer look at the phenomenon, as well as to walk their dog that was with them. Barney stopped at a picnic area south of Twin Mountain. Through binoculars, Betty observed an odd-shaped craft flashing multicolored lights travel across the moon. Barney thought it was a commercial airliner at first, but changed his mind as it rapidly descended in his direction. They quickly got back in their car and drove towards Franconia Notch, a narrow stretch of mountain road. The object rapidly descended towards their vehicle, causing Barney to stop the car in the middle of the highway. The silent craft hovered around 100 feet above the Hills' car and filled the entire field of the windshield. Carrying his pistol, Barney stepped out of the car. With the binoculars, Barney claimed to have seen 8 to 11 humanoid figures peering out the craft's windows, looking at him, while the other humanoid figures appeared to walk towards a panel on the wall of their craft. One remained and communicated a message telling Barney to stay where you are and keep looking. Bat wing fins extended from the craft bathed in red light, and a long structure descended from the craft. Barney ran back to the car in a frantic state and drove away at high speed as the object shifted above them. The Hills heard a rhythmic series of buzzing sounds which seemed to be coming off the trunk of their car. The car started to vibrate, with a tingling sensation beginning to pass through the Hills' bodies. At this point, they experienced an altered state of consciousness in which their minds were dulled. A second series of buzzing returned them to full consciousness. They had traveled nearly 35 miles but only remembered vague sections of the road. They recalled an unplanned turn, a roadblock, and the fiery orb in the road. Returning home, they experienced odd sensations and impulses they couldn't explain. Their watches wouldn't work. Barney noticed the binoculars were damaged without damaging them, and his shoes were scrapped. He also had the strange compulsion to examine his genitals in the bathroom, but found nothing unusual. Betty observed her dress was torn at the hem. zipper, and lining and noticed a strange pink powder on her dress. Shiny circles were noticed on the car's trunk that were not there the previous day, which interfered with the needle of a compass. The couple reported the encounter to Pease Air Force Base, though withheld some details to avoid being labeled as eccentric. Initial the 22nd of September interview and report by Major Paul W. Henderson determined that the couple had probably misidentified Jupiter. This report was submitted to Project Blue Book. Betty wrote to Donald E. Kehoe, leader of NICAP, National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, on September 26 with details of their encounter. NICAP member Walter N. Webb met with the Hills on October 21, 1961. After a 6-hour interview, Webb concluded they were telling the truth, though they had a mental block on their memories. 10 days after the alleged UFO encounter, Betty began having strange and vivid dreams that continued for 5 straight nights, then never returned again. In one dream, she and Barney were stopped at a roadblock by men who surrounded their car. She lost consciousness but fought to regain it. She then realized 2 of the men were forcing her to walk through a forest at nighttime. Barney was walking behind her, as if in a trance. The men were around 5 feet tall and were matching blue uniforms with military-type caps. They were humanoid, with black hair, dark eyes, prominent noses, bluish lips, and gray skin. In another dream, Betty, Barney, and the men were walked up a ramp into the disc-shaped craft that appeared metallic. When inside, the 2 were separated. When she protested, Betty was told by one of the men that it would take much longer if they were examined together. She was taken to another room, where a new man entered to conduct her exam. This man spoke in imperfect English and she had difficulty understanding him. The examiner told Betty the tests were to note the differences between humans and the craft's occupants. On November 25, 1961, the Hills were interviewed again by 2 more NICAP members. The 2 determined the couple was missing time, as they arrived home in 7 hours when their trip would have normally taken 4. The members suggested to the couple to try to elicit hidden memories through hypnosis. Thought Barney was apprehensive. The couple agreed as it would put to rest the nonsense of Betty's strange dreams. The 2 were hypnotized in several sessions beginning on January 4, 1964 and ending June 6 of that year by Benjamin Simon, to whom Barney's psychiatrist recommended. Barney was hypnotized first. Under hypnosis, Barney reported that the binocular strap had broken when he ran from the UFO back to his car. When driving, he felt compelled to pull off the road and into the woods, where he sighted 6 men standing in the dirt road. The car stalled as 3 of the men approached. They told him not to fear, and the leader of the men told Barney to close his eyes. The beings often stared into his eyes, which had a mesmerizing effect. Under hypnosis, Barney said things such as,
I felt like the eyes had pushed into my eyes. Those eyes. They're there in my brain.
He recalled that the couple was taken onto the disc-shaped craft where they were separated. He was escorted to a room with 3 of the men and told to lie on a small rectangular exam table. Barney's exam narrative was less detailed than his wife, as he kept his eyes closed from fear. A cup-like device was placed over his genitals. Though Barney did not experience orgasm, he thought a sperm sample had been taken. They scraped his skin and peered into his mouth. A thin tube was inserted into his anus and quickly removed. Someone felt his spine and appeared to be counting his vertebrae. Barney heard them speaking in a mumbling language he did not understand, but that they understood English and could communicate with him telepathically. Barney was unfamiliar with the term and said it was thought transference. When they spoke English, he noted their mouths did not move. He recalled being escorted from the ship and taken to the car, and watched the ship leave. Under hypnosis, Betty's account was similar to that in her dreams, but had notable differences. The sequential order was different. The men had a somewhat different physical appearance, and she had many details that were not in her dreams and sometimes contradicted her dream content. However, her account was consistent with Barney's narrative in hypnosis regression. Simon gave a post-hypnotic suggestion to Betty to draw a copy of a star map shown to her by the leader of the men that had been described as a 3-dimensional projection similar to hologram. Although hesitant at first, Betty did what Simon suggested. She was only able to map the stars that stood out in her memory, which were 12 prominent stars connected by lines and 3 lesser ones that formed a triangle. She said that the stars connected by solid line formed trade routes, whereas the dashed lines were less traveled to stars. Simon speculated that Barney's recollection was possibly a fantasy inspired by Betty's dreams, though admitted this hypothesis did not explain every aspect of the experience. Epilogue. In 1968, Marjorie Fish of Oak Harbor, Ohio, learned about the case through a 1966 book by John G. Fuller, which included a copy of Betty's star map sketch. An amateur astronomer, the elementary school wondered if it could be deciphered to reveal where the UFO came from. Assuming one of the stars was the sun, Fish constructed a three-dimensional model of nearby sun-like stars based of stellar distances published in the 1969 Giles Star Catalog. Studying the map over several years, she determined the only star that could match was the double star system of Zeta Reticuli. The distance needed to match these stars into the distinctive triangle on Betty's map was not generally available until the 1969 catalog was published.
Be me, 24 and an alcoholic. Staying at my great-aunt's house in New Hampshire taking care of her. Start to play cards with her to pass the time and keep her spirits up. Starts telling me about a local urban legend. Tuxedo Man.
Tuxedo Man loves to dance anon. He's such a wonderful dancer.
Auntie Tess, who is Tuxedo Man?
Anon. Tuxedo Man was the owner of this really swanky motel back in the day, but he passed away in a boating accident.
Swanky motel. Auntie Tess gets winded talking and tells me she's out for the night. Time to get shit-faced. JPG. Pour myself a whiskey tonic and climb onto the couch to watch some shows. Old TV starts to get blurry, so I shut off the TV and try to turn it back on. Remote stops working. Batteries must be dead. Open the back of the remote. No batteries were even in there. Stand up to go into the kitchen and the floor is soaked. All of it. Squish squash to the kitchen to find batteries and a towel. As I'm in the kitchen, the TV turns on and starts playing a song from Music Choice called Navy Blue or some shit. I go back into the living room ready to throw some batteries at anything I saw. TV turns off. Music continues, floor is still soaked. Get the remote working and press the power button. Instantly, the song and station change to I Want to Dance with Somebody. Nope.png. I get it to stop when I put it on ESN. And the messed up shit stopped. I don't really believe in ghosts. I think a lot of urban legends are just fairy tales, but Tuxedo Man was real. Apparently he was usually seen dancing in a tuxedo on the beach, under streetlights near the old motel, and in the motel proper. Naturally, he always appeared drenched.
Lived in Hudson, New Hampshire as a kid. It has become a sort of wealthy town now, but when I lived there it was mostly woods. There was one time me and my cousin crossed a stream, went over the fence and explored the woods behind our house that stretched for miles. I'll never forget coming across an old Toyota from what looked like the 91 or 94. Had VIN number etched out, no plates. We got the trunk open and saw at least 50 to 100 small animal bones in the back. We were creeped and went farther and saw an open-top Jeep flipped over, charred. No tires, missing some parts, but it was scorched. Obviously the fire department had to have seen a Jeep producing all that smoke, but still made no sense why someone would do it. Few months later, we walked into the woods with my friends so I could show them. It was nighttime, everything was gone. And out of nowhere we hear something walking towards us. We all seize up. The guy casually walks by with his bike. There is no path, just trees and brush for miles, and doesn't say a word, doesn't make eye contact. It was like 1 a.m., we at least looked like we were exploring, he just looked lost and confused. Very odd.
I live in New Hampshire with my younger brother. We moved here about 5 years ago. We both like /K/and/X/ are red-pilled, carry 24/7 and love us some spoopy movies and games. Our home is spaced about 500 feet from others like it, and we all share woods about 30 feet from the rear of our buildings. Walking our dog around the building for his bedtime pee late at night. Dumb dog is just sniffing away at the gutters when I hear a lot of brush moving behind me from the right, swiftly down to just behind me. Turn around and grab for my gun, no intention to take it out yet though. I hear kind of a kitten grr/hiss sound before I see a black shadowy figure hiss and swipe in my dog's direction. I can't really tell, but I assume it's a big bobcat or something looking like it's going to violently pounce on my dog. Dumb dog still sniffing at gutters. I then realized my gun was left inside because this was just a quick bedtime pee. I tactically noped through the rear door and dragged the dumb dog through in about half a second. I probably scared the shit out of the Bobcat though.
I'm a big believer in aliens and their visitations to Earth. However, I'm not one of those schizos that believes they've seen aliens when they see a light in the sky at night. I'm studying to be an aircraft mechanic, and I'm familiar with all the different light patterns that commercial, general aviation, and military aircraft use, as well as their flight characteristics. I'm also familiar with what satellites and things like meteors, shooting stars look like in the night sky. All that being said, there are 2 times I can say with at least 90% certainty that I witnessed an extraterrestrial craft in the sky at night. The first time was at my friend's cabin in New Hampshire. We were all fairly drunk and stoned, but we all watched this craft for 5 or 10 minutes. It was a bright white light, similar to a satellite, with tiny red dots around it. The thing that makes me sure it was not a satellite was its movement. It was moving very slow. Slower than your average commercial airline and way slower than a satellite. Which, if you've seen one, you know they go pretty fast across the night sky. Anyways, not only was this thing going snail pace across the sky, it would disappear for about 10 seconds and then reappear behind where it was when it disappeared. It kept doing that for about 10 minutes until it went into a cloud. We were waiting for it to reappear on the other side of said cloud, but it never did. The second one is a bit more brief. I only saw it for about 3 seconds. I was laying on my back observing the night sky with friends. I was probably the only sober one there. So as I'm looking at the stars, what I can only describe as a V-shaped object darts across the sky, going faster than anything I've ever seen. Not only was it going incredibly fast, it was moving back and forth, forming a zigzag pattern. Now when you see a shooting star, it's illuminated and leaves a trail of cosmic dust or whatever. This thing was darkened and left no trail, just shot across the sky, zigzagging, going at ludicrous speed. It also appeared to be at a higher altitude than commercial airliners fly and much larger. The only possible explanation for this one was if it was the SR-72, the new high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft that's in development that is predicted to be able to reach speeds up to Mach 7. But then again, that doesn't explain the zigzagging it was doing.
Southeastern New Hampshire. Medium-sized town, built-in woods. About 1 o'clock in the morning. Me and 2 other close friends of mine are walking around talking. Walk into a parking lot with some woods off of it. Chilling, talking about life. We all notice an orange hazy light in the sky. Think it's the sun until we check the compasses on our phones. It's in the west. We're all pretty creeped out and a bad vibe settles around us. Suddenly there's a flash of white light in the woods. My friend swears he saw something crawling in the light. We don't really believe him. Still creeped out. We walk into the woods, heading over a short bridge. We don't see anything at first, still really bad vibes. Getting a lot of deja vu. We're walking on a path that eventually intersects with a dirt road. Last stretch of the path. Hear a noise to our right. Dark. Could swear we see something hiding behind a large stump, crouching. Not human. Run along the path and the dirt road. Get into this creepy suburban neighborhood. Cut through someone's lawn to get to the other side of the woods. Walk through a heavily forested area for about 3 minutes. Freaking out. Tangible bad feeling in the air. Break out into a square clearing. Flat ground, dewy grass. The orange light is right above us. Awful deja vu, feels like a nightmare I had when I was young. The light suddenly fades very quickly. The bad vibes instantly go away with it. We're all left with a whooshing sound in our ears. Head back to my place and sleep there. /x/ What happened?
Against my better judgment, I'm going to tell this story. I'd strongly encourage you to not go and bother whatever was involved, or if you go, at least bring some kind of offering. Anyway. Be me, the year is 2012 or 2013 or so. Senior in rural New Hampshire high school. Girl I'm close with likes spooky things and so do I. We head out in the middle of the night and visit creepy graveyards, reportedly haunted sites, and interesting areas. One night we're in Mason, New Hampshire, pick related. It's the dead of winter, snow everywhere. We park at the church and walk to the graveyard. Joking around, happily exploring. Every graveyard we visited, we'd aim for the back corners and cross the rock walls. Our rationale was that in the olden days, people who'd done something wrong were buried just outside of hallowed ground in unmarked graves, so that's where we'd find the most activity. As we're walking towards the back corner, just the two of us, I'm suddenly struck in the chest hard enough to almost be bowled over. Stagger back, almost knock her over, she's like half my height. Shock. Look up. Tall dark figure that 100% wasn't there before, standing behind the rock wall we were heading towards. This was like 50 feet away, they couldn't have hit me. I get in front of my friend. She's small, and must protect. Insist on leaving. She stays long enough to mutter an apology, then we hightail it out of there. One of the scariest experiences of my life, and nothing really even happened. It's true what they say, if you go looking for something you're bound to find it. I really have to go back and revisit the graveyard one day. It was one of the things I encountered that really stuck with me.
I grew up in Milford. I've had some experiences in the woods far down Osgood Road. I am 11 years old. My house was backed by hundreds of acres of town forest over reclaimed farmland from 1700 to 1800, rock walls outlining property lines. I'm walking down a wall, on top, just following it roughly 300 feet from my house in the woods. A sudden sweet floral smell fills the air. In a split second the world goes quiet, almost muffled, and it looks like a sepia filter has been applied. 3 large brown animals jump over the wall in front of me, moved very fast, somewhere between large dog and black bear sized and relatively canine in shape. As soon as the hop over the world returns to normal, no smell, crisp summer day without any visual changes, and no animals in sight.
Live in southern New Hampshire. Mostly sell to people in my small town. About 10,000 people, and everyone knows everyone town. List an old vintage Schwinn. Lady from Mass messages me. Offers $25, half of what I was asking, but it needed to be restored, so I accept. She responds with a higher offer even though I accepted the previous one. Clearly she barely speaks English. Talk with her for a while. Says she wants the bike for her son. I tell her it's a girl's bike. Explains she's buying it for her daughter. I respond that the bike needs a restoration. She changes her story to say it's for her niece. Ask how old she is. 9. 9 years old. The bike is for like a 6-year-old. She tells me she is a small girl, quoted exactly. It's like 8 at night at this point. She suggests we meet at my house at 9. Tell her no, we could meet at the gas station in the morning. She says she wants to meet now. Have to repeat myself in saying that I don't meet after sunset. Next morning, change my mind and have her meet at the police department and fire station. My brother is a firefighter in my town, and this lady had creeped me out. She shows up, with who I presume to be her son that she had mentioned. He dressed like he was 14 but looked 24, covered in tattoos, and almost looked like he was in a gang actually. Lady gives me a really disappointed look when she sees the bike. She pays me the $25. They leave. Pick related, it's the bike. Typing this out makes me feel like it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but I also feel like I dodged a bullet by having my brother there and meeting at the police department.
B-23 Commando in New Hampshire with 24 years old brother. Tasked with defending my rich aunt's cabin. Sir, yes sir. Jiff. We are to spend a night and keep the place tidy. Place is looking good, we lock up and do dinner, back by 6:30. Notice all the lights are on, and the front door is open about a foot. Guns out, lock front door behind us, and strategically began to clear rooms. Fridge is open, trash on floor. As we clear rooms, we turn the lights off and close the doors behind us. We clear all 2 floors and 12 or so rooms and find nothing at all. We get to the last room. Last room is an old master bedroom with a very large old-style room with no lighting of any kind, and it's dark out. Lights on, we clear the room. One large walk-in closet in the corner, and we clear it. Relieved bald man PNG. We turn around to get back to the most important part of the house, the fridge full of beer. We both completely stop in our tracks as we noticed every single door as far as we could see was wide open, and every light was on too. When we got to the kitchen, the fridge was open again and so were all of the cabinets. We tactically shit ourselves, re-cleared the entire place and locked/blocked the doors. We slept in the same room, but he stayed up all night watching. The next morning our aunt met us, thanked us, and we have never been back or been invited since. To this day I am very baffled by this experience, and my brother blows it off like it was nothing.
Be me. Ossipee Lake, New Hampshire, 2012. Chilling by lake at night with a couple of cousins. Stars everywhere in the night sky, beautiful. All of a sudden, a noise like a loud whoosh with a whistle, no unlike throwing one of those special Nerf footballs. Bright light in sky, we all look up. Bright comet-looking object is streaking across the sky, it was awesome. It stops. It stops in the middle of the sky. Starts getting lower, hearing a crackling sound and the smell of burnt copper. Tell everyone we're leaving, grab the hands of my youngest cousins and get the hell off the beach. Make sure they run home, literally down the street. Fiery thing about 200 feet in the air now. Bright light shines down on the water, can't see. This is the end as we know it. MPG. Bright light disappears, hear the same whooshing sound. Rub my eyes for like 5 minutes, when I can see I'm by myself. We, my cousins and I, about 5 in total, all still talk about that night, except for the little ones, they barely remember it. Now I don't go into the woods or by water at night if I can avoid it.
Got a personal experience to share. Would love some input on what you guys think I saw. Some quick background. I grew up in the Northeast United States, in a smallish town, not rural but not super urban. Our house was in a more hilly and wooded area of the town, a few miles from downtown, old farms around, postcard New England woodland. Be me, first grader in early fall, playing outside with 2 of my younger brothers in the front yard. Around 6:30 to 7 p.m., kind of dusky. Mom calls us in for dinner. We run up to the front porch leading to the front door and I had a rubber snake toy in my hand, whip it behind me into the grassy central part of the yard. Had a wraparound driveway with a yard in the middle. Me and my brothers turned around to watch how far it went. Kobe crash plan. See where it landed. See a shadowy black-looking figure standing exactly where the snake landed. Approximately 3 to 4 feet tall, half blended in with the dusk, glowing orangish eyes staring right at us. We all scream and stumble over each other piling through the front door, all in tears. Look back outside, nothing to be seen. Went outside the next day and the snake was cut into 3 pieces. This is the first time we saw it. We are adults now and remember this exactly the same. I'm the only one to have seen it twice. Story to follow. Story 2. This happened 5 years later. At this point we moved across town to a larger house, more wooded, on the edge of a town forest, dead-end neighborhood surrounded by hundreds of acres of woods and a few quarries deep in the woods. At this point I have completely put out of my mind my previous experience. At a friend's house for his birthday party. Midsummer, 7:30 to 8 p.m., dusk again. Around 10 of us outside playing teamed manhunt. Me and my birthday boy run into the woods and find a large downed tree trunk to hide behind. Hiding for a couple of minutes when all forest noise stopped. No wind, no birds, that sort of very unsettling silence you don't find in the woods during the summer. A friend and I looked at each other once we noticed the stillness. Look behind us. About 30 yards behind us we see the same shadowy figure staring at us. Simultaneously there but not. Glowing eyes. Amorphous being. Nope, the ever-loving fuck out of there screaming and crying. Leave the tree line and noise comes back. Yell for everyone to get inside. Spend the night playing vidya trying to forget. It was at this point that I connected the dots to the original experience. Both times I felt what I can only describe as primordial fear. To this day I get a hair-raising feeling when thinking about it, and until a few years ago my eyes would water just talking about it. I saw a psychic, medium, healer back in college, and she said it was an energy, being watching over me, keeping me from harm, but I'm not sure I buy that. I know things come in threes, and ever since I was a kid I've been terrified of what it means if I see it again. One more sighting, experience, whatever you want to call it, not related to the previous two but happened in the same area. As said before, the house is at the edge of hundreds of acres of town forest. Used to be farmland but nature reclaimed after 1830. The edge of our property was an old stone wall used for livestock of some sort. Many fond memories of exploring the woods day and night, LARPing with airsoft guns, fantasy role play with sticks, etc. Quality childhood. DND. Summer vacation. Outside playing. Start to walk down the rock wall towards the pond in our neighborhood. Only a quarter mile away, can still see our house through trees. What happened next took place in about 15 seconds real time. Walking, not really paying attention. The forest gets silent and I smell something sweet, sort of like lavender but with something else I've never been able to identify. The world seemed dipped in a light sepia hue. 3 massive light brown dog-shaped things dash in front of me right over the rock wall. Like they jumped over it directly in front of me. As soon as they cleared the wall the world returned to normal, smell gone, no animals visible anywhere. Book it Mach 10 to the house and run inside freaking out. Never had any explanation and haven't had anything major happen since. Not terribly scary or life-threatening, but these 3 experiences have stuck with me and I'm always conscious of the power of the woods and things we cannot see or understand.
Hampton, New Hampshire here. We got a few of them, but the one best known is about Goody Cole. She was the only woman convicted of witchcraft in New Hampshire back in the 1600s. She died in prison and they hastily buried her body in an unmarked grave, but apparently the location of it was lost and now no one knows where her body is. Legend goes that because she was never given a proper burial, her ghost roams the woods of Hampton during the middle of the night. She moans and cries and haunts the entire town. She is said to look like a little old woman in black colonial clothes. I have personally never seen her, but some people swear to it. Anyway, they say if you go into the woods late at night and call out her name, you will see her out of the corner of your eye, but then she will disappear. She doesn't like when you do that though, and it is says some people who mocked her have died some strange deaths.
Durham, the 3 Chimneys Inn, Hannah is her name. This descendant of Valentine Hill is believed to be the home's most restless spirit. Over the years we have found Hannah to be quite fond of electronics and to enjoy playing hide and seek with a variety of inordinate objects. It is believed that Hannah does not like change and makes this very well known when new equipment with a power cord is brought onto the property. This oftentimes has forced the inn to seek outside assistance with help for something as simple today as a new computer or copy machine, which has stumped our vendors as to why certain items will not properly work. The numbers have appeared backwards on a calculator's 10 key. While printing one page from a computer, several pages have begun printing even after the computer and printer were turned off and unplugged, leaving the printer without power, continuing to print for nearly 20 minutes until the paper was gone. Hannah has a special affection toward some of the inn's employees. The inn is staffed 24 hours a day, therefore the inn has an employee stay overnight. On one occasion, an employee was sleeping to be awoken by someone playing with her hair. Aware that Hannah is often around, she simply tucked her hair into her nightgown and told Hannah to go to bed. On another occasion, another employee was fast asleep, again, awoken by the sound of someone walking around our front parlor. Quickly the employee went downstairs and found every drawer in the armoire, desk, and filing cabinet pulled out by exactly 1 inch. On occasion Hannah has shown herself. One evening a former chef was working in the food and beverage office late into the evening. Shortly after 1 a.m. the chef locked the office and was making way up the stairs from the tavern to leave when a movement happened. Below the staircase is a railing that looks behind the bar. In looking down to see what the movement was, the chef was shocked to see Hannah standing behind the bar area looking up at the chef. Oftentimes locks with deadbolts have a way of locking themselves while no one is near. While a party from a local insurance company were dining in our Maples dining room during the holiday season, the entire party witnessed a glass from a table across the room where not a soul was near pick itself up off the table and smash against the side of the table to land in pieces on the floor. Much of the staff and guests alike have witnessed the shadow, face, touch or vintage clothing of this magnificent woman named Hannah. Given the history of the inn, it is believed that several spirits other than Hannah reside in this home today. Guests have made mention of footsteps and moving furniture above their heads during the night, while there were not any guests above them to have made any sounds.
Nashua, Gilson Road Cemetery. Many sightings of misty people have been reported. It is said that if you walk from the front entrance to the middle, you feel like you're wading in water. Park the car across the street and it'll feel like you're being pushed back from the cemetery. Stand at the perimeter and you can hear voices from the back, right-hand corner. Tombstone dates go back as far as the early 1800s. A black hooded figure has been seen on several occasions. December 2003, there are also areas around this cemetery, in the woods, and also where the new homes that are built, are haunted. There have been many things that have happened in this area. There are glittering seen in many places in the woods, as well as scary sounds and shadows. People's voices seem to be heard, but not understood. You can hear things, assumed unhuman, moving around in the area. Horses and dogs sometimes shy at different areas both day and night or refuse to go anywhere near some areas. Some of the older homes have unexplained things happen in them, glasses breaking as you reach for them, cold spots, and doors and windows that open for no reason, or that will not stay closed. The elementary school has sports fields that are very close to the cemetery, and things have been seen and heard in these fields at all times. There is also the saying that someone or something watches over this area. It has been seen by kids just inside the woods or crossing the fields and roads in the area at rare times of the day or night.
Hampton Beach, Island Path Road. In the late 1600s, Hampton was the scene of the second greatest witch hunt of the era. The hysteria of Salem had boiled over into this sleepy fishing community with a population of less than 300. Goodwife Eunice Cole lived at the end of the road by the water. She is said to have cursed a group of mariners who were taunting her. Upon the mariners' return to the Isle of Shoals, rugged outcropping of islands 7 miles from Hampton, a great storm blew up, sank the boat, and they were never seen again. Goody Cole was convicted of witchcraft for laying the curse. She was not executed for her crimes but was forced to pay a heavy fine. She died in her home a few years later. Her body was removed and buried with a stake through her heart. Her body was dug up and moved many times. For the past 300 years she has been haunting the residents of the street. It is never spoken of. Figures appear in the fog, lights flicker, objects moved, and livestock cats will go missing.
Rye, Ray's Seafood, Goldie, who haunts the top floor of the restaurant. She is known to open windows when they are locked. One night when the owner's children were in the bar sneaking drinks, she made the phone ring several times. She also made the glasses shake, until they left. Back in the late 50s, Ray's was a residence. Goldie and her sister Blanche shared a bedroom in the house. Goldie and Blanche both went to homes for the elderly in early 1960. Goldie had all her belongings stored in the attic of the house. Ray's was built in the basement of that house, and the house then became an apartment on the top of the restaurant. Several nights the two children would see a vision coming from the attic where Goldie's things were stored. On several occasions the attic light would go on by itself. The mother felt a chill in her bedroom on several occasions, and one night the ring she left on the dresser was missing. She felt that Goldie was always looking for her things, and she just decided to take the ring, as all her belongings had been given to charity. The original Ray's burned in the 80s, and there have been no reports of Goldie since. But others have felt her presence too in the old building.
Dover, the Dover Mills, next to the Cocheco River. Many years ago the mill caught on fire. A lot of it burned down and many people died in the mills. Now when you are just standing outside of it after dark, when everyone is gone and all the offices are closed, you can see strange lights coming from higher level rooms. You also hear very strange noises, which can be identified as machines turning on and off. At first they are quieter, but when listening for about 5 minutes, one very loud machine turns on. If you look in a few of the basement windows, you can see one light on in the whole basement. No one goes down there all day and no one goes in at night because the basement entrance is blocked off. But a light is always on. When entering the building in either of the 2 towers, if you are to sit on the stairs alone, you can hear faint noises, which are undetermined, however. There is no one else in the tower to create such noises.
The Woods Devil, or possibly Woods Devils, could either be a single Bigfoot or a more likely group of them that have roamed the woodlands and hills of Coos County, New Hampshire since the 1930s. These skinny and Sasquatch-like creatures are described as being tall at around 7 to 9 feet and have shaggy tan gray hair, an unusual trait, slightly similar behavior to the hide behind, or even the whirling Wimpus, is that this Bigfoot uses the trees to hide. It is said that these creatures will hide behind a tree when a human is coming, and stay behind that tree until the coast is clear. If there is no cover to hide in, the Woods Devil will stand perfectly still. Outdoorsmen, hikers, and others alike have described hearing screams of these creatures echoing the hollows of Coos County. It isn't exactly known for sure if the Woods Devils are old lumberjack tales of fearsome critters, or if it is an actual subspecies of Bigfoot, or these mysterious creatures are not at all Bigfoots but their own species of creature.
Legend has it that ocean-born Mary was born at sea on July 28, 1720, to James and Elizabeth Wilson. She was on a ship filled with immigrants that was intercepted by pirates. The pirate reportedly promised not to harm anyone if the Wilsons named their new baby after his mother, or his wife, depending on the version. She moved to Londonderry and married James Wallace in 1742, wearing a silk gown that was presented to her at birth by the privateer. Some versions take the legend even further, stating that the pirate returned 2 decades later to claim Mary after her husband died, when in fact he lived to be 81. There is a house in Henniker known as the Ocean-born Mary House, but it has no connection to the red-haired baby who was born on a ship and later became known as Ocean-born Mary.
Chocorua's legend states that the proud Indian chief refused to flee from conflict with the white man. It is said that he befriended one of the colonial settlers, a man by the name of Cornelius Campbell. Chocorua left his son Tuamba in the care of Campbell's family, while he went north to celebrate a powwow. While he was gone, Tuamba ate some poison that was meant to kill marauding wolves. When Chocorua returned, Campbell was away, and Chocorua killed his wife and son in anger. When Cornelius returned to find his family killed, he sought the Indian chief for revenge. Chocorua fled to the top of the highest nearby mountain, with Cornelius in pursuit. Knowing he would die, Chocorua raised his arms to the sky and shouted, "Evil spirits breathe death upon the cattle of the white man. Wind and fire destroy your dwellings. Panthers and wolves howl and grow fat on your bones." Chocorua goes now to the Great Spirit, before leaping to his death from the mountain known today as Mount Chocorua. 2 years later, Cornelius' body was found dead, partially eaten by wolves. Other mysteries have plagued the area, all blamed on the curse of Chocorua.
Ruth Colbath's husband left the family farm one day in 1891, never to return during his wife's lifetime. For 39 years, Ruth is said to have left a light burning in anticipation of his return. She died in 1930, at the age of 80 without seeing her husband again. Thomas returned just 3 years after her death without any real explanation for where he had been. He claimed to have wandered away and was too embarrassed to return after so much time had passed. Today, the Russell Colbath House is a registered historic site. It is open to the public.
In 1873, a double murder took place at Smuttynose, the largest of the islands of the Isles of Shoals. Norwegian immigrants Enid and Karen Christensen were purportedly the victims of murderer Louis Wagner, a German fisherman who was seen in Portsmouth Harbor earlier that evening. Wagner had previously stayed and worked on the island and reportedly rode to the island to rob the house. He was convicted of the murders and was hung in 1875. Wagner professed his innocence until his death, and the story has since been sensationalized in the press and on film. Although Wagner had no alibi, The conviction was based on circumstantial evidence, and several theories about who may have killed the women have emerged over the years.
Also known as America's Stonehenge, Mystery Hill is a 4,000-year-old monument in Salem, New Hampshire. While the exact origins of the site are unknown, much like those of its European counterpart, the stone formations are said to create an accurate astronomical calendar, including differentiation for solstices and equinoxes, as well as provide a true north orientation. The site itself is comprised of stone chambers, walls, and monoliths. While the origin story of Mystery Hill may never be uncovered, many have speculated as to its genesis. Some claim that Native Americans held the site sacred, while others insist migratory Europeans brought their knowledge of construction and astronomy to our New Hampshire woods, only to leave behind their mysterious formation. Further complicating the discussion is the broad variety of languages that have been found carved into the stones, ranging from Ogham to Phoenician to Iberian Punic script.
New Hampshire Route 149 is haunted. This might be a bit out there, but hear me out because I have some stories to tell. I'm a New England anon. Lived in and around small town New Hampshire and Massachusetts for most of my life. I have a friend who moved out to an even more remote small town up in the sticks of New Hampshire, and I've driven out there to see him. The only good way to get there is to go through the small town of Hillsborough, which requires hopping on the very obscure Route 149 that goes from where New Hampshire up into and through Hillsborough. For those unfamiliar with the area, all of you, I reckon, this isn't really a highway like an interstate. Hell, it isn't even much like other routes. That area of southern New Hampshire is surprisingly hilly and wild. The route wraps around sharp inclines and passes by various swamps and dark woods. The woods of New England are usually thicket right on the sides of the road, but when driving this route at night, the only times I have, it's obnoxious how upon you the woods become. Anyway, I've only driven the route a handful of times, and always exclusively at night between the hours of 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. The route itself also passes by like 3 graveyards, and the area itself is usually laden with heavy fog. It's genuinely disturbing if you allow yourself to be sucked into the ambience. I drive a lot for my job, and for some reason this road has always filled me with dread and anxiety. And that was before anything weird has happened on it. I'll detail 2 of my experiences in Greentext form. I'll try and keep them brief. One of them happened literally the other night, and I've been meaning to make this thread because it inspired me so much. I haven't encountered anything supremely paranormal, so this sticks out. I guess most of you probably can't relate. But if you have any other creepy highway or road stories, then post them up. First story. Be me, about a year ago. First time driving up to my buddy's house. Following Google Maps. About an hour and a half drive. It's around 7:30 p.m. Freshly dark. Load up some music and start driving. First thing that surprises me is how secluded these roads are. This can't surely be the fastest way to my buddy's house. Follow the road as best I can. Otherwise get there without an incident. Have a good time with my friend's family and chat about the drive up. He agrees that it's definitely a trek.
I blew a tire on the drive once. Was stuck out there for an hour waiting for triple a right in the middle of a woods, next to a swamp. Pretty creepy, man.
Tell him that I wasn't looking forward to the drive back, but that I'll manage. Don't drink or do drugs or anything due to the unpredictability of the road. When it's time to leave, about 2 a.m. or so, I decide to lean into my fear. I load up one of those creepy stories YouTube videos that's like 3 hours long. The drive isn't nearly 3 hours, so that should keep me awake. Get a coffee and chug it at a 24-hour convenience store and start the drive back down. The video works great. Random stories about skinwalkers and ghosts and spooky shit. I'm pretty tired too, so I keep swearing I'm seeing stuff in the corners of my headlights. Enjoying myself despite being creeped out. Keep driving. Get pretty into some stories. Other ones I tune out and think about other stuff. Pull over to take a piss in Nawoods. Nothing creepy happens. Eventually the video cuts out whilst I'm driving. Check my phone to see if I lost my internet connection. The video is over. It was at least 3 hours long, like 3 hours 19 minutes or something. Look at the time, after 5 in the morning. I had been driving for the entire duration of the video. Check the Google Maps and it says I'm still a half hour out from my destination. I lost like 2 hours of time that night. No explanation why. Second story happened just the other night. Drive up to Buddy's house. This time I stayed cognitive the entire time due to my previous experience with Route 149. It was a cooler night. Really foggy too. Once again, the drive up was uneventful. Besides a weird amount of roadkill and passing cars with one headlight out. I've learned my lesson, and during the drive down around 11 p.m. this time, I start to listen to pop country radio stations instead of spooky shit. Once I hit Route 149, I didn't see a single other car. On every other road, downtown Hillsborough, Route 77, and then later on Route 3 there were a good deal of drivers. Route 149 was a dead zone. Very eerie. Whilst driving, I'm racing down the hills to get home as fast as possible. All the roadkill got me worried about passing animals. A common concern of my area. It can kill you. Eventually hit a sharp left turn that twists around and down a hill, going pretty damn fast. Once I hit the bottom, there's several figures in the road. Like 4 or 5 deer right in the middle of the road. They're all gathered around and all look directly at me as I go down the hill. Hit the brakes a few dozen yards in front of them, my truck screeches to a halt. They're all very fucking dirty. Like it looked like they had been rolling in mud. None of them moved for a good few seconds. I'm genuinely frozen. I knew something was wrong. Just then at the side of the road I see something emerge. It's another deer, but it was on its hind legs. I couldn't tell if it was leaning against a tree or just standing. It was also dirty, but also covered in thick shades of brown and maroon. Maybe blood, or maybe it had red fur, I don't know. Its eyes weren't black, they were pure white. Like cue balls. Staring right at me from the tree line at the edge of my headlights glow. It was tall as fuck, overshadowed my truck. Think, skinwalker, and floor it out of there. The deer disperse as I take off towards them. Drive home fast as fuck. Fuck Route 149. Bad vibes.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.